I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I know all of you are very busy. For those of you who don't know me, although I think I've met the vast majority of you, I'm Kerstin Soderlund. I'm one of two of the associate deans here at the Jepson School. And in the past, we used to have Jepson faculty here and Jepson students here, and they would talk about curriculum, and they would talk about their experiences and everything else. But having done this now 1 year and witnessed everybody come in the room and start rifling through the folder, really you're all here because you just want to know how do you apply, right? Pretty much? Anybody really undecided? Chelsea still maybe a little bit? Well, I am happy to stay afterwards. I'm happy to answer questions individually. But we really made the decision this year to try to come in and focus first and foremost in this session about the application process itself, what it looks like, what you all have to do, what the timeline is, because generally speaking, you've all had at least one leadership studies class, and so you have some exposure to the curriculum, you have some sense about what this place is all about. So that's what we'll do today. I'll lead off, I'll talk through the process, I'll talk about what's in your folders, I'll talk about the Blackboard group that you've all been enrolled in. And then if anybody has questions, wants to know more about the curriculum, even if it means what classes would you take next semester if you were admitted, I'm happy to have that conversation as well. We are videotaping today's presentation, and it is so that we have it available to students who, after having the 2 scheduled sessions and 3 makeup sessions, the people I just can't seem to find time to get together with, at least this way they'll be able to get an overview and get a sense of what all is entailed in the process. So I'm not the most comfortable person being videotaped. You all, your backs are facing them, so if you have questions and you're not somebody who wants to be videotaped, you shall be faceless. That's the good news. We don't have a camera roaming. So to start with, I asked Joe to log into Blackboard because while we're talking, I wanted to make certain that you all saw the student view. When I go into my account, it doesn't necessarily look exactly like what you will see. So that's going to play a key feature. We have dropped all of you into a Blackboard group. It's named Fall 2010 Jepson Admissions. You've actually been in it since I think we went live with it last Wednesday. And so most of the materials you're going to need for application are right there. We'll be putting up announcements, the overview of the process, and everything is located in that Blackboard group. But let me talk a little bit about what you'll find in the folders that you got when you came into the room. On the one side, this handout that does talk a bit about the Jepson curriculum, why leadership studies. This is one of the handouts I use all the time when I talk with prospective students who are interested to come to the university, but have also expressed an interest in Jepson. And one of the reasons it is my favorite is that on the back, there is a snapshot of the curriculum about what classes are required for Jepson majors and minors. It also has just a really small sample of some of the advanced level courses that you can take to fulfill the electives for either your major or minor in leadership studies. So we wanted to make certain that was in there. It's a bit easier to look here and get a quick idea rather than having to go to the university catalog and kind of going through all of that. Behind that, you'll also find that we gave you just a sense of Jepson in terms of its mission and purpose, which folks who just came out of my Justice and Civil Society class, we were just talking about mission and purpose statements. So we thought it was important for that to be in there as well, for you to have a sense about what Jepson is about and what it is we hope to do with the curriculum here and for our students that go through this school. The other side, there is a letter from Dean Keert welcoming you and again, encouraging you to go forward with the application process. Most of you, anybody certainly who had taken either 101 or 102 last academic year, received a letter from Dean Keert at home, probably shortly before you returned, also encouraging you to apply. Her letter talks about and touches on some of the kind of key dates and recommendations we have about the process. And then the last 2 pieces in the folder are sort of 2 critical pieces in regards to the application process. One of them, the white sheet, is a form which is also available up on Blackboard. It's a transcript request form, and I'll talk about that a bit more as we go through each of the assignments in Blackboard. Most important, though, is the bright orange paper. which is why it is bright orange. And these are all the instructions that walk you through the different portions of the application process. This is also available online. We've also provided, directions in regards to each component when we go in and you look at the assignments on Blackboard. But we did want to make certain that you had a hard copy and that it was evident it was really one of the key pieces. So when you go in to your Blackboard group, Jepson Admissions, you will see, if you go into my calendar, all of the key dates have been entered in there. And under announcements, it should still be here, yes. Here's the overall timeline for the admissions process. So I'll start there, slightly big in regards to concept, and then we'll come down more narrowly and talk about each of the assignments. So this is the second week we've been having information sessions. By the end of this week, hopefully everybody will have come to a session, met with me individually, perhaps watch this video once we receive it back, so that they understand the process. Monday, September 13th is a day that we've sort of noted as a key date in your process. By that date, we would really recommend that you have any or all of your recommendation forms out to the individuals that you're going to ask, and we'll talk again more about each of those forms, both the required and the optional form. Really important to get those out early because, as you all know, the faculty who teach justice and the social sciences, or leadership in the social sciences or leadership in the humanities, they teach multiple sections. They've had now a year full of students, and so they're going to get sort of besieged with requests. So we want to make certain that those recommendation forms are out to them as early as possible. So if you can get those out by September 13th, that's going to give them a pretty good period of time, because recommendation forms as well as applications are going to be due on the October 1st. After that point, the Jepson Admissions Committee will be reviewing all the applications. And let me talk for a minute about that committee. There's a Student Affairs Committee for the Jepson School of Leadership Studies. And so the Admissions Committee is a subset of that. There are faculty on that committee, and I'm on that committee. I preside over the process. We really work on the behest of the faculty at the Jepson School. So what will happen is when we receive all of the completed applications, a list of every applicant, all of the folks that have filled all of the requirements, completed all of the paperwork, will be sent to the entire faculty at the Jepson School. At which time, if they have any relevant information to offer, they can send that to me as the chair of that committee. And so that means if you had Dr. Williamson for justice, or you currently have Dr. Williamson for justice, and let's say you choose not to have him do an optional recommendation form, he might see that your name is listed there and recognize that you're in his class or that you were in his class last year, and he might say, gosh, Kelsey was fabulous. I'm so glad to have her. She's really on the ball, and she really offers good things to think about in class. So it's going to be an opportunity for all the faculty to send that information in before we begin deliberation. So the smaller committee will review all the applications, review any additional information that the faculty provide, and then we'll make selections. So by the week of October 18th, you will be notified about your status. We will notify you both electronically and in writing. And so one of the key things is when we look at the application, you want to make certain where it says Richmond address that you provide us your local address and not your home address, because we want to make certain we can get that information to you as quickly as possible. So two things I would encourage everybody to sort of have on their calendars and be thinking about, because if you are notified, if you are offered admission, there are two events that we really feel that you need to be in attendance at. Obviously, there may be some unusual circumstances that might inhibit you from being at one or the other, but we want to have it on your radar. So on Friday, October 22nd, that will be the end of the week that we notify everyone. We're going to be having an orientation session for new students. It's called the Jepsonian Institute, which makes me giggle anyway. And part of having that orientation is so that we can talk about curriculum, so that we can do some sort of mass advising and get up for the appropriate classes for the spring. We want to be able to talk about concentrations and honors options, all of the things that sometimes we used to talk about here before we started talking about the application process, and which most of the time folks were not really tuned into because they were more focused and concerned about the admissions process. So that would be that Friday right after selection. And then on Tuesday, November 9th, actually in this room, we'll have our Prelude Ceremony. And that is really where we welcome the new students to the community. Everyone receives certificates. They come up, they have the opportunity to shake hands with the dean, sign the book, and become part of the Jepson community. So it's a really lovely event. We always have a special guest. Sometimes that special guest, special speaker, may be a faculty member. Sometimes it's an invited guest from outside of the community. And Jepson Student Government right now is narrowing down and making some choices about those speakers. So those are two really nice events, and events that we really feel it's to your benefit to be able to attend. So get them on your calendar and just kind of have them there so that you know whatever the outcome that you're going to be able to attend if that's something that you're going to need to do. So this whole timeline is up right on the front page. It's also under announcements. The process I just talked about is also up. There's a button that says process overview, so if at any time you want to go back, if you want to remember who's on the committee or any of those kinds of things, all of that information is here. The one other piece I will say is that sometimes the student government will, between selection and prelude, will choose to do a couple of events for everybody to just get to know one another. They're typically socials. They had a seller social last year. It's also a chance to meet upper class students that you may or may not have had the chance to meet. I am trying to encourage them that it need not be a week of activities, which it has sometimes been in the past, but that one or two options might be nice. So any of that kind of information as it develops, we'll put up under announcements and you'll have so that you know. Because again, they're just good opportunities. Typically faculty and staff will come to some of those as well, so you get the chance to meet some other people. So process overview is here as well. The instructions, so the all-important orange form is up here. You can always go back to it if you were to lose the all-important orange sheet. And so then really the last relevant button over here on the side takes you into the assignments section. You'll see that the very first item we have listed is talking about that required faculty recommendation. And I'm going to open this up. It is a Word document. Hopefully this won't do anything strange. I want to open it up because we're asking that you go ahead and get some information filled into it before you give it to whoever you're going to be giving it to. Let's see if it opened. All right, good. So this would be the form that you would use to give to either your leadership and the humanities or leadership and the social science faculty member. You have to have one or the other complete a recommendation for you. This is the only required recommendation. If you've had both, if you had Dr. Wren for 101 and you had me for social sciences or Dr. Forsythe for social sciences, you can ask both of those faculty to complete the recommendation form, and you would use the required recommendation form for both of them. Because again, those are the two classes, one or the other, that you have to take to be eligible. So what we're asking you to do is to open up the Word document, type in your name, all of the information on top that it's asking for. You'll see that it asks you, as pretty much any recommendation form would, if you want to waive your rights to seeing the recommendation or whether you do not want to waive those rights. On any recommendation form, probably for even applying to the university, you usually have this option. And so what it means is that if Chelsea says, I do not waive my rights, if she came to me and said, Dr. Soderlund, I want to see my recommendation that so-and-so submitted for me, is that I would be able to show her that recommendation. If you waive your rights, then I wouldn't be showing you the recommendation form. And I will say, I don't think that for our faculty, whether you choose to waive the rights or not waive the rights is going to have an impact really on whether they say that they'll do the recommendation for you or not. But an important thing for you to think about and decide. And then at the bottom, you're going to type in for us the name of the person that you're giving it to. So again, if you're giving it to Dr. Wren or perhaps to Dr. Hoffman, whoever you had for 101 or 102, whichever instructor you're asking. Then we want you to save the Word document, which is a good thing, because then you've got it saved someplace, net files, your computer, your jump drive, you know who you gave it to, and you're going to actually email it to the individual. So So if somebody did have me for leadership in the social sciences, a bunch of people would have. If Joe wanted me to fill out a recommendation form, he would fill in the top, save it, and email it and say, Dr. Soderlund, would you complete this for me for Leadership Studies 102? Now, having said that, all of you have had some faculty who may not necessarily really like the whole electronic world, and it makes them somewhat uncomfortable. They may not necessarily use email frequently. So if you have a faculty member who says, no, I want you to print it out, or you just know before you even ask them that you should print it out, fill out the top, go ahead, do your part, and give it to them in print. We don't want to cause anybody undue duress. And they're all going to return hard copies to us anyway. They're going to print it out. They can either type their comments in, or if you hand it to them, they ask for you to hand it to them. They're going to fill it in, they're going to sign it, and return it to me. And you'll see, as you go down, the nature of the questions that are being asked. So it really is geared towards classroom exposure and experience. When we talk about the optional ones, sometimes people say, well, what about faculty advisors or people like this or that? And I think when you look at the nature of the questions, you're going to find that there are some folks, including faculty advisors, who you might have it, be inclined to ask to complete an optional recommendation, that they may not necessarily be able to answer these questions. They haven't seen you in a classroom setting. So they have the opportunity to provide comments and all of the rest. They're going to sign it. They're going to send it back to us. A frequently asked question is, are you going to let us know, are you going to confirm when every piece of my application has been received? And we are not. We will certainly, as we're coming into the end, if I have not received recommendation forms from either 101 or 102 instructors or a student, I will actively be out talking to my colleagues because they know that they play a really critical role in everyone's application. So I will be out sort of beating the bushes and in the hallway reminding people that they need to get those recommendation forms in. If you've indicated on your application that you have asked somebody else, and you'll see on the application there is a place to do that for an optional recommendation. If something is missing, we may give you a heads up, but really my suggestion would be is that it's best for you to go back a week before things are due and say to somebody, hey, I just wanted to double check, the due date's coming up, did you have a chance to send that recommendation form in for me? The one other thing I will note too is, did anybody have Dr. Mietrich, Ann Mietrich? Okay. She has been in contact with me and very much wants students to understand that she is available to do recommendations. So you'll see both on the sheet and here, we've provided her Gmail account. So if you want to ask her, because you had her for 101, by all means, she is willing and ready. You can email her directly, and I've actually told her she can email them straight back to me. If you had her for core, perhaps, and you wanted to ask her for an optional recommendation, which we'll talk about in a minute, same thing, you can use that same email, and she'd be happy to get that back. Anybody have questions about the required recommendation? Pretty clear? Okay. So the next thing that we're recommending, and when do we say that we want you to have your recommendation forms out by? Next week, okay? The next item on the list is the official transcript. So we gave you a copy of it in your folder, and we have typed in all the appropriate information at the bottom in terms of how it should be returned, paper copy, who it should be returned to. But if you would like to, if you open it up online here in the assignment section, you're going to have the ability to type right in and put your information on top and all of the rest. You can print it out. That form needs to get dropped off to the registrar's office, okay? And it typically takes about 3 to 5 days to process. So again, we've listed it right under required recommendation because it's one of those things, it doesn't take a lot of thought. You can answer the questions at the top of that form very easily. Get it over to registrar and have it be done so that you're not waiting and hoping that it gets here in time. Don't be turning it in the week that applications are due because Murphy's Law, there'll be some glitch or something will be wrong and they can't get it to us, okay? The earlier you turn it in, the better. The other thing I'll say is if anybody is a transfer student, we've had good luck talking with the registrar's office. They are generally amenable to the notion that if you give them permission to release your transcripts from your other institution, they will send those to us. We know at Jepson that anything the registrar's office has are official transcripts because that's what they would require for you. So if you did transfer from another institution, rather than having to go back to whatever that school was and get an official copy, you can go ahead and give our registrar's office permission to go ahead and release those transcripts as well. And they're happy to do that. We did that last year as well. So hopefully that should cut down a bit if you do have another institution that you need to go back to. So that's pretty cut and dry. They're going to send them to us. In fact, I came back and got a boatload of them this morning. So after last week's session, everybody must have run it. So the next piece that's in here is the Jepson application. And one of the things that's different about the actual application form versus the other items that we've provided for you here on Blackboard is that you're going to work on your application and you're going to upload it back into the assignments sections. This portion will be electronic. It will come into us in that fashion. So if you go ahead and you click, we give you the directions. What we want you to do is to pull up the application, which is a Word document, offline. So into your computer, OneDrive, whatever works. This way, you know you're working on it in a safe environment. You know you're going to have a copy of it, which is also important and something you should have for your records. But as we all know, the last thing we want is working on it at Blackboard and saving it as a draft, and all of a sudden, the next day, your draft is gone for some unknown reason, because it might be an unknown reason to information services as well, particularly since we just went through an upgrade. So when you pull it up, you're going to see the whole beginning portion of it asks you very traditional information. Again, asks you to identify your Richmond address, so please do put in your most local address. Couple of other things to note here. We ask about t-shirt size, and we ask that because typically the student government gets t-shirts for the entire new class, which is quite special since we all know the bookstore doesn't really carry a lot of Jepson swag, so this is your one opportunity to get something that says, legitimately says Jepson on it. The other reason, the other thing I'd like to point out is it says, are you planning to study another subject? If you have already declared a major, or you know that you're going to declare as a business major or poli-sci major, you know that there's another minor you're going to pursue, by all means, that's what we want you to list there. However, if you still have sort of a laundry list of things you're considering, well, I might do international studies, and I was thinking about a minor in WGSS, and I don't know, biochemistry is kind of interesting. Please, we want to know sort of some of those ideas that you're narrowing down and those disciplines that you really kind of are just weighing some final options about. It is helpful to us and just gives us a sense of who you are, but if it's a really long list, then it doesn't necessarily help inform us all that much. So just pointing that out. There's an opportunity to mark off that you've submitted your official transcript request. You're going to indicate to us whether you're asking your 101 or your 102 instructor or both, and we know who your 101 and 102 instructors are, so we don't need names. It also is going to give you space where you can list, if you are asking for an optional recommendation, who you're giving that form to. So we can be on the lookout and know that a form is supposed to be coming in regards to that. So we ask some demographic kind of information, and then we get into these questions. So please list 3 to 5 academic and scholarly experiences that have significantly influenced your intellectual development. You can put your cursor right below it, and you can start typing. List no more than 4, and it's since you graduated from high school in regards to campus work or other activities. Please don't add rows to the table that we've provided for you, because we don't want more than what we've asked for there. At the end, if there's something that you feel you must tell the committee that did not fit into one of these questions, there is space for you to do that, okay? So you come through, and then you get into these essay questions. There are 3 essay questions. I think all of them are definitely shorter than what you had to write to apply to most colleges and universities, including the University of Richmond. But I do want to encourage you to take some time and really think about these. They are certainly something that faculty look at when we're making selections. And again, you can go ahead, you can put your cursor right there, go down, get rid of that B, and go ahead and start typing right in. The first two are short essays, they're 250 words. I would ask that you keep it to 250 words. So, why do you want to study leadership and what do you hope to get out of it? The second one, again, is a short one of the activities listed above, so all those items that you listed above, what was most meaningful to you and why? And then the last one is a 500-word limit, and again, go right underneath, start typing underneath the question. But that one is really asking you to think about some sort of text, some sort of material you had in another class outside of Jepson, and make a compelling case for why that should be part of the Jepson curriculum. So it's really asking you to sort of think about what does the Jepson curriculum entail, and how would this really enhance this interdisciplinary discussion about leadership. You get at the end to check, in terms of the honor code, you're indicating that this is factual, that it's all your own work. And then there is room right above that to go in, again, put your cursor in, and provide any other information that you think is important. Please note that does not mean that you should cut and paste your resume space, okay? We've had that happen too. But again, there might be some really key things that by the nature of the way we asked the questions previously, you didn't have a chance to represent. Some people have also taken this opportunity that, let's say, first year at the university was kind of rocky and you had a difficult transition and there was some sort of blip with perhaps your GPA. People have sometimes taken that space to sort of say, hey, here's the situation. If you're looking at my GPA and you're worried about it, sometimes it makes me worry. Here's what happened, here's what the situation was. So that's the kind of thing that you might want to include in that additional information. So you're going to work on this offline. You're going to get it perfect. It's going to perfectly represent who you are, the best of who you are, why you want to be part of Jepson. And then once you've got it saved just the way that you want it, you've proofed it, you've checked your word count, you've done all that kind of stuff, you're going to come back in to the assignment section, and where it says attach file, you want to browse your computer, which will also let you browse all different places, but you want to make certain that you pull it up and that you attach it. Another thing, just to point out, and it has happened, we want you to attach the actual Word document and not copy it and try to paste it into this box above. If you do that, it comes through and it's really ugly. It loses all of its formatting. It makes very little sense. So again, we want you to attach the Word document. And perhaps the most important thing is when you get to the bottom, you want to hit submit. If you hit save as draft, it's going to sit in Cyberland, in your Cyberland Blackboard world, and it's not going to come through to me. So hitting submit is the key in regards to this particular assignment. Questions about application? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. The last item that's in here is optional faculty recommendation. I'm not going to open it because when I do, you'll see it looks remarkably like the required one. The difference is that it says optional at the top. But you're going to treat it the same way that you would the required recommendation form. So let's say you did take Justice and Civil Society. Maybe you had Dr. Williamson or Dr. Hicks. Maybe you have Professor Coker, or you have Dr. Williamson, or myself right now. And you say, oh, well, I think maybe I want to ask one of them to do that recommendation. If you're using one of your justice instructors, that would be optional. That would be using this form as opposed to 101 or 102. You could also ask somebody outside of the Jepson School. So let's say you had somebody for core and it was just a really great experience and you really connected with that person, you could ask them to fill out the recommendation. Again, the intent really is that it will be a faculty member. If you look at the nature of the questions, you may have somebody that you're really connected with in terms of residence life, or perhaps Dean Landfair or Dean Bowman, but they really may not be able to answer the nature of the questions there. So it really is sort of geared towards faculty. The one exception I would say, we say that it is for the Richmond community, so faculty either inside Jepson or in the greater university community. But if you're a transfer student, obviously, if you just transferred in, or even if you have been here a year and you transferred in, there may be a faculty member at your previous institution that you might want to ask. And so that is the exception that we do make with optional recommendation forms, is that you can go outside of the university if you have been a transfer student. But do the same thing. Again, we included Dr. Meetrus's email in case you had her for core and you wanted to ask her to do an optional recommendation for you in that capacity. So questions about any of the pieces of the application process? Anything that you need to work on or hand out to people or anything like that? Yes?
For the activity section, can we include summer internships?
By all means. So if you've had internships that you want to include, that's a perfect thing that you could include there as well. It allows for pretty broad, and it tries to, you'll see as you go through it, it tries to ask both about academic and scholarly kinds of things that you've been involved in, as well as other kinds of activities and civic engagement and things of that nature. So we really try to represent both. Any other questions? Well, let me give you a couple other pieces, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. Some of the things I'm going to share with you are based on the fact that we've had these questions asked of us several times. One is, it's not unusual that people ask about what if you're an athlete and being a Jepson student. Any athletes in the room? Okay. By all means, we have any number of athletes who are Jepson students. I was just up at the University of Virginia watching the Richmond, Virginia game, and Tyler Kirchhoff, who is in his last semester here at the University of Richmond, he's getting a dual degree actually in business administration and Jepson. So we have lots of other folks. We've got field hockey, lacrosse, soccer, basketball folks. So it is definitely a feasible, reasonable thing. And I think definitely Tyler made some decisions and is also doing a dual degree. So he's been here an extra semester, but generally all of them have finished in a 4-year time span. Study abroad. Can you be a Jepson major and also study abroad? Yes, by all means. Right now we probably have, I don't know, 40% of our junior class happens to be studying abroad. As you guys probably know, most students at Richmond decide to go during their junior year, often in the fall semester. Jepson is well represented. We will always work with you with majors to find at least one class that you would take abroad that would fulfill an elective requirement here at the Jepson School. And if it's not possible for other reasons for you to go during the academic year, maybe when you go, if you're a major, to do your internship, you might choose to go do that someplace internationally so that you can make certain to have that experience. But we certainly have not, I don't think the Jepson curriculum in any way has impeded anybody from going or studying abroad. Other questions, major declaration, because we all know forms were due last week. What will happen is when we make offers of admission and students are asked to submit a form back to us saying, yes, I accept, I intend to be a major, I intend to be a minor, we submit those forms to the registrar's office and they graciously accept them as a declaration in terms of major or minor. There is one caveat with that. I would say major will go on your record right away. If you designate that you're going to be a leadership studies minor when we get to that part of the process and you have not declared another major, it just kind of sits out there in the world. Minors don't get put into the system and on your record until you have a stated major. And so in cases of minors, I often say if you don't have a declared major in another department, you may want to go back and just be doubly sure that they've got that minor on record, because it could be sitting out there sort of waiting for you to declare that major. So let me ask this, do you all have questions? Other questions, things I haven't talked about, things you're wondering about, things that you're anxious about? Yes?
For the required recommendation form, does it have to be a class that we completed, like the teacher has, or can it be?
So if you're currently in 101 or 102, you can ask that individual for a recommendation.
Okay.
Every year when we do admissions, there's always individuals who, maybe they're in their very first leadership studies class, they're taking it this fall semester, they're in either leadership in the humanities or the social sciences. Faculty know and anticipate that there's going to be people who are in those classes now who are going to ask them for recommendations. And or if you had 101 or 102 last year, but now you're in the other one and you wanted to ask to have 2 required recommendations, by all means, they know. We've sort of asked 101 and 102 faculty to try to have some assignments or some things up front in the class that they're going to be able to gauge. And what we may find is that sometimes they may go and do the recommendation forms for people who they had last year first, and kind of wait as we get closer to that October 1 date to do the recommendations for the people that they're currently working with for the first time. But they know that's coming, and that's part of the process every year. So that's a good question. Other questions? Yes?
After declaring a Jepson major, are you able to declare a major or minor in arts and sciences?
By all means. So the question was, if you declare a Jepson major, can you also have majors or minors in the arts and sciences? We have folks at Jepson that are representing pretty much every area of the university. So we've got double majors or leadership majors and minors in these other areas, some combination. Obviously, you can imagine business. We tend to get a lot of combos, whether it's business major, Jepson minor, double major, leadership major, business minor. But we have a growing number in lots of other areas. International studies is very popular, combination with leadership studies. We have folks that are in the fine and performing arts. We have folks that are in biology and chemistry and the sciences. So political science, psychology, sociology, all of the ones that you might traditionally see as a combo, and maybe some that you wouldn't. So, and that's really diversified. I think that some of our business numbers are actually coming down, and we're seeing growth in other areas. So yes, you can, as you all know, unless you're doing a dual degree, if you have a double major, there's a lot of things that sort of cross-count both ways. And so you'll find that you may have opportunities, things that are going to fulfill both things for a major or minor in another program as well as here, or general education that fulfills both for a major or minor as well as general education. So we haven't had any students in any of those other programs, again, that haven't been able to complete it and complete it in 4 years. Other questions? How was that? Thorough? Well, if people think of things, I want you all to feel comfortable either emailing me or coming and asking questions. My office is right down the hall. When you come in the front of the building, if you go to the left, it's the very first door that you'll come to. Immediately next to me is Christine Most, who is up in the back of the room. She was handing out folders as all of you came in. And she is my partner in crime in this process, particularly in trying to manage everything as it comes in, keep everything in orderly fashion, and she certainly knows this process probably as well, or well, she knows it better than any number of faculty. You might even ask about it. So if for some reason I'm not there, please don't hesitate. You can ask Christine, and she is there and is able to help support you in this process as well. If anything new comes up, we'll add it. We'll put announcements up on Blackboard. After we get through this process, we're really trying to sort of identify the individuals who have no intention of going through the process and trying to get them off of Blackboard, because everybody who was eligible got loaded in. There were 222 people who were eligible. So if you know of anyone who took 101 or 102 and has no intention of applying to Jepson, let them know until they tell us that they're not going to do it. They're going to continue to get emails from me. So if they want to get off the list, they can email me or they can stop by, and we're happy to take them off, because it helps us have a better sense of how many people are actually applying. Okay? All right. You all say that you're good. I did one of these last week, and somebody emailed me immediately after and said, I have all these other questions after I came to the info session. And I thought, well, why didn't you ask them? So if you do, please follow up with me. Otherwise, go off, be fruitful, get your recommendation forms out by the 13th, and we look forward to getting your applications. Thanks, guys. She's like, I have questions.